The Washington Post reports a new $250 visa integrity fee is now law, set to take effect this October. Reuters forecasts a staggering $12.5 billion loss in tourism spending for 2025, while new data reveals a shocking 16.8% drop in visitors from America's closest ally, Canada. On one side, a government citing security and revenue ahead of the 2026 World Cup and 2028 Olympics. On the other, an industry crying foul, calling it a self-imposed tariff. As border towns brace for impact and families are forced to pay $1,000 just to visit, one question looms. Has America built a financial wall at its own front door? For decades, the US-Canada border wasn't just a line on a map, it was a conduit. The world's longest undefended border symbolized a seamless relationship, a rhythm of commerce and kinship. Canadians weren't just tourists, they were neighbors, family members, and the lifeblood of countless American border towns. This free-flowing exchange was a cornerstone of a massive tourism economy that, as of 2023, contributed nearly $1.9 trillion to the U.S. GDP. It was a stable, predictable, and profoundly profitable partnership, one that both nations took for granted as an unshakable pillar of North American life. But beneath the surface, the ground was shifting. As the U.S. looked toward hosting the world's biggest events, the 2026 World Cup and the 2028 Los Angeles Olympics, a new political calculus emerged. The narrative changed from welcome to wariness. The first concrete sign was the gutting of Brand USA, the nation's tourism marketing arm, its budget slashed from $100 million to a mere $20 million. Then came the earthquake. On July 4, 2025, the One Big Beautiful Bill was signed into law, creating a new $250 visa integrity fee. The stated goal? Bolstering security and raising revenue. But to a global travel industry already seeing troubling signs like a 16.8% drop in Canadian visitors by mid-2025, it felt less like a fee and more like a declaration. The foundation of a decades-long relationship had begun to crack. The decision was not made in a vacuum. It was forged in the crucible of post-pandemic economics and a new era of national security consciousness. Officially unveiled as a key provision within the sweeping One Big Beautiful Bill, signed into law on a day steeped in national symbolism, July 4, 2025, the $250 visa integrity fee was presented as a prudent, even necessary step. The logic, as articulated from the corridors of power, was twofold and seemingly straightforward. First, revenue. With the nation facing complex fiscal pressures, the fee was framed as a way for the immigration and border security apparatus to become more self-sustaining. The argument was that those who wished to benefit from entry to the United States should contribute more directly to the enormous cost of maintaining its security and processing infrastructure. This wasn't a tax on Americans, but a user fee for foreign nationals. Second, and more urgently, was the specter of security. With the FIFA World Cup set to descend upon North America in 2026 and the global spotlight of the Los Angeles Olympics in 2028, officials argued for a more robust screening process. The $250 fee, they contended, would fund enhanced background checks and technological upgrades needed to vet millions of incoming visitors, ensuring the safety of these monumental events. The message was clear. America's doors were open, but entry required a more significant investment. The policy was layered with what appeared to be reasonable exemptions and mechanisms. Visitors from the 42 nations in the visa waiver program, largely allies in Europe and Asia, would be spared the $250 charge. However, even their path was not untouched. The cost for their mandatory electronic system for travel authorization, or ESTE, was quietly doubled from $21 to $40. For those paying the full $250, the government included a promise. The fee was potentially refundable. If a visitor abided by all terms of their visa, departing on time, refraining from unauthorized work, they could theoretically claim their money back. But the primary measure was quickly compounded by another, more targeted policy. A pilot program set to launch on August 20th, 2025, introduced the concept of a visa bond. This required select visitors from countries with higher rates of overstaying their visas to post a staggering cash deposit of between $5,000 and $15,000. Though initially limited to a few thousand applicants, it sent a powerful signal. The final piece of the puzzle was not an addition, but a subtraction. The budget for Brand USA, the agency responsible for promoting the United States as a premier travel destination, was decimated, slashed from a robust $100 million to a skeletal $20 million. Business Insider. The cumulative effect was undeniable. This was not a single policy, but a systemic shift. Through a combination of direct fees, hefty bonds, and the dismantling of its own marketing arm, the United States was fundamentally altering its relationship with the world. It was constructing a financial barrier, brick by legislative brick, arguing it was the necessary price of security and sovereignty in an uncertain world. Across the border, the reaction was not one of understanding, but of bewilderment and betrayal. For Canadians, the news landed like a door slammed shut by a trusted neighbor. The theoretical logic of Washington, D.C. dissolved against the lived reality of the world's most integrated bilateral relationship. The impact was immediate and measurable. Even before the fee's official implementation in October, the chilling effect was profound. By the first half of 2025, overall international arrivals to the U.S. had already dipped by 2.9%, but the numbers from its northern neighbor were catastrophic, a staggering 16.8% decline. This wasn't an abstract statistic. It was empty hotel rooms in Buffalo, deserted diners in Plattsburgh, and quiet parking lots at shopping malls in Seattle that once thrived on Canadian license plates. The human cost became painfully clear. As the U.S. Travel Association, an American industry body, pointed out, this was not just a $250 fee. For a Canadian family of four, it represented an immediate upfront cost of $1,000 just for the privilege of a vacation. It was, in their words, nothing more than a cynical junk fee. The promise of a refund was met with deep skepticism. Navigating a foreign government's bureaucracy is a daunting task for anyone, and the mechanism for this supposed reimbursement remained opaque and undefined. To most, it looked like a one-way transaction. The sentiment resonated across the Canadian economy. Businesses that relied on cross-border tourism saw their futures thrown into turmoil. University administrators watched with alarm as applications for student visas plummeted, a 22% drop for F1 academic visas and a 13% fall for J1 exchange visas in May 2025 alone. This was not just a loss of tuition fees, it was a brain drain in reverse, a severing of academic and cultural ties that had enriched both nations for generations. The response from the American travel industry itself echoed the Canadian frustration, framing the policy as an act of economic self-harm. Leaders called it a self-imposed tariff, a tax on lawful visitors that would only serve to drive them to other, more welcoming destinations. This chorus of criticism culminated in a dire forecast from the World Travel and Tourism Council. They projected that the new fee structures and the resulting decline in visitors would strip an astonishing $12.5 billion from the U.S. economy in 2025 alone. From the Canadian perspective, the narrative of security and revenue was a smokescreen. This felt personal. It was a penalty for proximity, a tax on a historic friendship. The open door that had defined their relationship with the United States for a century was now guarded by a paywall, and the price of entry, for many, had simply become too high. And so, the stage is set for a confrontation with no clear victor. On one side, a U.S. administration locked into a policy it has publicly championed as vital for national security and fiscal health, with the October 1st implementation date looming like a deadline cast in stone. Reversing course now would be a significant political retreat. On the other side, an alliance of international partners, led by the sentiment of its closest neighbor, and a powerful domestic travel industry watching billions of dollars evaporate as the global welcome mat is pulled away. This is the great paradox of 21st century America, a nation simultaneously preparing to host the world while making it more difficult and expensive for the world to arrive. While official data on the specific economic damage to cities like Tucson, Orlando, or Los Angeles has yet to be fully quantified, the anxiety is palpable. The whispers of half-full hotels and canceled tours are growing louder. With the World Cup and the Olympics on the horizon, the United States finds itself at a self-made impasse, caught between the politics of security and the economics of hospitality. The cost of this new American posture isn't just paid in dollars at a border crossing, it's paid in canceled futures and severed traditions. Consider the path of a Canadian high school graduate. For generations, the dream of attending an American university was a tangible, accessible goal. It represented not just a world-class education, but a rite of passage. That dream is now being reassessed in thousands of households from British Columbia to Newfoundland. The data from May 2025 is stark, a 22% collapse in F1 student visa issuances and a 13% drop for J1 exchange visas. These aren't just statistics. They represent empty chairs in American lecture halls that were once filled by Canadian talent and perspective. For these students and their families, the $250 fee is more than just an administrative hurdle. It's a psychological barrier. It reframes a relationship of friendship into one of suspicion. The vague promise of a refund offers little comfort, viewed widely as a bureaucratic black hole from which money is unlikely to return. This financial sting is magnified for families. A weekend trip to see a baseball game in Seattle or catch a Broadway show in New York, once a simple excursion, now carries a potential $1,000 surcharge for a family of 4 before they even buy gas or a single ticket. The calculation has fundamentally changed. That $1,000 is now being redirected. It's funding vacations within Canada, fueling a domestic tourism boom. It's being invested in Canadian universities, as students who might have gone south now choose to stay home. The impact ripples outward, a slow-motion decoupling of cultural and educational ties. The once effortless flow of people and ideas has been met with a financial dam, and the cost is measured in lost opportunities and a friendship that suddenly feels transactional. But this is not a one-sided story. The economic pain doesn't stop at the 49th parallel. It boomerangs back with punishing force. For American border communities, the 16.8% drop in Canadian visitors is an existential crisis. These are not cities with diversified economies. Their entire commercial ecosystem, from gas stations and outlet malls to diners and hotels, is built on the foundation of Canadian license plates in their parking lots. The visa fee acts as a direct tax on their survival. The $1,000 a Canadian family saves by not crossing the border is $1,000 that is not being spent in their stores. It's a direct transfer of wealth out of these American communities. The silence in these towns is the sound of the projected $12.5 billion in lost tourism revenue beginning to hit home. The damage is compounded by a stunning act of self-sabotage on the global stage. Just as the nation makes it more expensive for tourists to come, it has also largely stopped asking them. The decision to slash the budget of Brand USA, the country's international marketing agency, from $100 million to just $20 million is seen by industry experts as incomprehensible. While other countries are aggressively courting international travelers, America has unilaterally disarmed in the global tourism war. It's a double blow, raising the price of entry while simultaneously whispering its invitation. This leaves American businesses, from massive theme parks in Orlando and casinos in Las Vegas to small tour operators in San Francisco, at a severe disadvantage. They are forced to compete for a shrinking pool of international visitors who are being actively discouraged by both cost and complexity. The policy designed to protect America's gates is simultaneously starving the very businesses that operate within them. The shared cost is the realization that a wall, whether physical or financial, keeps people out, but it also traps those inside with the consequences. The United States stands at a precipice of its own making, caught between a fortress-like security posture and the economic imperatives of its massive tourism industry. A policy designed to raise revenue and secure global events is now inflicting a projected $12.5 billion wound on its own businesses and alienating its closest allies. As the countdown to the World Cup and Olympics continues, the situation forces a fundamental question upon both nations. In an era of new financial walls, what does it truly mean to be a neighbor, and what is the ultimate price of that partnership? What are your thoughts on this new fee? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want to see more in-depth reports like this, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel.